what's up YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a special My 2 Cent video for this week. No video game review for this week. I'm going to try to do one next week, but in the meantime, I'm going to do a look back in 2017. Last week I did one on gaming, and this week I'm going to do one and look at movies though. A lot of the movies that have came out this week, some of them good, some of them not so good, and what was good, what was controversial and mixed, and what was bad. So why don't we get started, and we'll get started off first with the good. So let me get my little notes out. I can't find them. Here we go. Alright, so we'll start off with the first one, and for the goods though, we will have to say horror movies. Apparently a lot of horror movies came out this week, and they all did perform very well though. Even though I'm not a huge horror fan or anything else, I won't deny their success. Movies like Get Out and It did very well at the box office, despite the fact that these movies were probably low budget compared to say like Transformers The Last Night was. But even so, they were able to click with the audience, and they managed to perform very well at the box office. So for horror fans though, obviously this is good for them because it seems to be doing very, very well. So again, I'm not a horror fan person, but I won't deny the fact that horror movies like Get Out and It somehow performed very well in the box office. So good for them. The next one is the DCEU, the DCEU Extended Universe. The DC Extended Universe has got off to a pretty rough start though. As much as I liked Man of Steel and everything, it didn't deliver as what Warner Bros. Had hoped for. They tried to do it with Batman vs. Superman, which had a lot of good ideas, but I feel as though they were rushing to play catch up to Marvel, which was probably their biggest mistake ever though, which eventually started impacting Suicide Squad though. Well, they finally got their first hit though, their first win on the board though. It took them a while, but they finally got at least their first one, and that was Wonder Woman, that came out starring Gal Gadot. And I have to say, having seen the movie myself, I enjoyed it though. I thought it had a little bit of that Captain America First Avenger vibe a little bit into it. I thought it was odd they picked World War I, but it was still a very interesting movie. It still had a little bit of that style that Zack Snyder is famous for, so it still had that approach. Again, I don't hate Zack Snyder. I like some of his styles, and some of the movies he's done is good, but obviously not everything he does is perfect though. But overall, Wonder Woman was a good movie, and I have to say I'm glad this was the hit for DC Extended Universe. So, but of course, the rest of the year was the Justice League is a different story, and I'll get to that one though. But great for Wonder Woman, great that it did well at the box office. The next one I would like to say is War of the Planet of the Apes. Now, this was a good movie that came out though. I did enjoy Rise, not as much. Dawn is where I really started to enjoy the movie, and Rise definitely had that really good story. The emotion of Caesar and what he was going through following the events of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, trying to protect the apes from the remaining humans, to the actions of what Kobar, if I'm saying the name correctly, did though. So, and I have to say, Andy, I forgot his last name. I apologize if I don't remember his name, so I apologize for that one. But he delivered a great job playing Caesar from Planet of the Apes. It was a really good story. It was sort of a fitting conclusion to Caesar's story though. If a fourth movie happens, and I think director Matt Reeves has said something about a fourth movie though, if it does happen, it will be very interesting to see how this plays out, especially now that Marvel owns a majority of 20th Century Fox and everything like that. So we'll have to wait and see, but overall, War of the Planet of the Apes was a good movie. The next one, of course, is that we definitely got some World War II flicks this year, though, in which two of them were Darkest Hour and Dunkirk. Darkest Hour was a very good film, as it tell the story of Winston Churchill, played by Gary Oldman, who basically before giving that famous speech to the British Parliament before the Nazis invaded England, or air invaded from the air. So the famous "We'll fight them on our beaches, and we shall defend our island, we shall never surrender." Again, I apologize if I don't know the whole speech and everything like that, but it was a really good movie. I did enjoy the movie, and I thought Gary Oldman did a great job playing it, though. And of course, the other one is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, and it was really interesting for me from hearing the ticking clock, the style, and the approach that Christopher Nolan's known for making his movies. So it was in terms of the story of how the British soldiers, British Army or British military were in retreat following the fall of France to try to get back to England and everything. Between the two movies, I do enjoy Darkest Hour, don't get me wrong, but I just liked Dunkirk a little bit more, mostly because of that style and approach that Christopher Nolan was. But either way, we got some good World War II flicks this year, Darkest Hour and Dunkirk, and they're all both of them are worth watching, though, so I would definitely recommend that. And last but not least, though, Marvel, and love them or hate them, they continue to dominate. Continue to dominate with their cinematic universe with their hits after hits. This year we had 3, though. We had Spider-Man Homecoming, which finally brought the Spider-Man movies, I think, back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as far as we are aware of, and finally delivered probably a good Spider-Man since, say, Spider-Man 1 and 2, not the Amazing Spider-Man, though, although I did think Amazing Spider-Man 2 was better than the first one, but still. But at least this one was definitely good, and I enjoyed it, though. Followed by the release of Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was also awesome as well. That was a good movie. Of course, Thor Ragnarok came out, which had sort of like that 80s vibe to it in a way. And of course, the one scene where Thor is fighting Hulk, which many people feel like it gives off that Planet Hulk vibe. I never read the comic, but I heard some good things about that one. And last but not least, and although this is not from Marvel Studios, it still was a success. It still had the Marvel name, and it still was a success, and that was Logan, the hard R-rated action flick, and supposedly Hugh Jackman's last role as Wolverine. And if this was the last role that he was going to play as Wolverine, if that's true, unless the rumors about him might be reviving it, now that Marvel's got the rights to the X-Men back, though, but if this is the last role, I think this was a good final sway song to it. I thought Hugh Jackman did a great job playing Wolverine in this one. Patrick Stewart playing, Professor X, though, and so it was a good final send-off. One final thing I want to say about that movie, that I have no issues with it being R-rated or anything like that, but I can't help but feel that if Deadpool was not a box office hit as it was back in 2016, then I would have suspected that Logan would have been PG-13. I think it's because of the success of Deadpool that convinced them to go this R-rated route, which, again, nothing wrong with that, providing that the source material is there, and obviously it was there for Logan. So good for Logan, and good for Marvel in general, with having still continue to dominate with their cinematic universe. They managed to do what others seem to have a hard time doing, or failing, to say the least, though. Okay, we're going to take a bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the controversies in mix. And I can only think of really 2 controversial in mix as far as movies go, or in movie industry in general. So take a bit of a break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video of looking back at movies in 2017, if I'm saying the name correctly. If I said 2016, I apologize for that one. And with part 2, we're now going to go into the controversial and mixed part, though. And there's really 2 parts. 2 controversial is mixed. I'm sorry about to say that. The first one was the pretty controversial one. The second one I just don't view as nearly as controversial as a lot of people are trying to portray it as. So we'll start with the first one, and I'm sure most of you have heard this name before last year. It was on the news, and the name, of course, is Harvey Weinstein from the Weinstein, I think, the movie company Weinstein, though, with the whole sexual allegations and so on that came out during that year, where a couple women have come out being, I think, sexually harassed and maybe even more, that ultimately brought him down. And this created sort of a domino effect as other celebrities started to pay the price. I think Kevin Spacey did, to even politicians on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, though. From Roy Moore, who ran in the Alabama special election that lost to Doug Jones, to former SNL star and former senator of Minnesota, Al Franken as well. It's certainly with Harvey Weinstein that gave birth to what is often referred to now as the Me Too movement, though. The whole issue was, this whole thing was very, very interesting, played out, and to see how the whole domino effect start coming right out as other people started coming out talking about being sexually harassed or sexually assaulted and all that stuff. And while I know some people would argue and say that all they're doing this is for fame and fortune, though, I have to say, any allegations of sexual harassment or anything like that has to be thoroughly investigated, though, regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, okay? I mean, yes, independently investigated, but still investigated, though. And if the allegations are true, then appropriate action has to be made, and legal action has to be made. So regardless of the fact that Harvey Weinstein supported Democratic causes and all that stuff, if the allegations were there, and obviously they certainly were, then yes, he should face legal trouble for his actions. Make no mistake, and it goes to the other side as well. So it was very interesting to see how this entirely played out in 2017, though, and it certainly hasn't stopped, at least not yet, though. It'll be interesting to see how it is in 2018, with the whole thing, and especially with the Me Too movement as well. But overall, the whole controversy with Harvey Weinstein and the allegations really brought this whole thing into the limelight, though. All right, some people have different views on that, though, but it was nevertheless a very interesting, somewhat controversial mix, but still a very interesting thing. And hopefully, it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out in, like I said, in 2018 with the whole Me Too movement. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's definitely there. And finally, the last one, and this is the controversy I think some people are blowing out the proportion, at least from my perspective, though, is Star Wars The Last Jedi. That came out in theaters in December, though, and has so far crossed the $1 billion mark at this point, despite the movie bombing in China, though. It's worth pointing out Deadpool was not shown in China, and yet that movie performed well, although that had I believe a $50 million budget, though. The thing that really bothers me about this is how some of the controversy and some of the criticism seems a little bit unnecessary. Now, I'm not saying you have to like the film or anything like that, okay? You can, whether you like the film or not, that is your decision. No, if you don't like it, that's fine. I'm not going to argue and say you're wrong or anything like that. I like the film. I enjoyed it. I thought it had an Empire Strikes Back vibe to it, though. So I did enjoy the film, okay? My brother, on the other hand, he didn't enjoy it, but his wife did enjoy it, though. So obviously, everyone's going to have a difference of opinion. That's fine. You know what the part that really bothers me is the part that the people pushing the SJW and feminazi argument to going as far as saying, oh, you're being bought out by Disney. I'm sorry. Once you go down that path on this, you have no valid argument whatsoever, okay? It's one thing to say that I just didn't like the movie or anything. Fine, that's understandable. But once you start going down that, or pushing the whole, we should do an online petition to shut down Rotten Tomato just because critics gave it a great review. I mean, I'm sorry. That's at that point, you have no valid argument. And if your life evolves around that, though, I'm going to say the same thing as I said in look back at gaming in 2017 to those who took Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn way too serious, though. If you're one of those people that are pulling that, then A, you have no life whatsoever. B, you need professional help. And C, you need to get a new hobby, something that doesn't involve anything with Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes. Because if you're taking just what Rotten Tomatoes says way too seriously, or if you're pulling the SJW and feminazi card as your sorry excuse, then you need to find a new hobby, though, because this is just utterly ridiculous that people are pushing that. Plus the whole you being paid out by Disney. You know what? I saw that card played when some people who may have liked Ghostbusters answered the call saying, oh, you're being paid out by Sony without providing any proof. I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy that argument at all. And some of those people who are playing that card are probably the same people who complained about the Star Wars prequel and now they're saying, oh, they liked it and everything like that. No, I'm sorry. Once you're going into that area, you're pushing it way, way too far. Again, I'm not saying you have to like the movie, but once you go down that territory, then that's it. You forfeit any discussion to have about this movie or anything like that. Bottom line, the movie was controversial to some people. Some people, certainly not everybody, enjoyed the movie though, and that's fine. But there are still some people that pushed it way, way too far, and it needs to stop. I mean, just stop. We can disagree. We don't have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy the movie, that's fine. But to accuse people who may have actually enjoyed the movie, though, is pushing it too far indeed. Okay, we're going to take a bit of a break, and when we come back, we'll get to our final part, and that is the bad, and what I thought was bad in 2017 in regards of movies. So we'll take a bit of a break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with the third and final part of my 2 cent, a look back at movies in 2017. So now we're going to get to the final part, which is the bad. And just like with the controversial mix, there were only 2 that, at least as far as I'm aware of, that I could think of that I thought was sort of bad for movies. This is bad for movies in 2017. So we'll start off with the first one, and apparently it seems as though a lot of blockbusters movies unfortunately did not perform as well, and they're not always these tentpole movies are not always a safe bet. We had movies like Blade Runner 2049 unfortunately underperformed despite getting heavily praises by critics and fans, though I haven't seen that movie. I probably should. I've heard some great things about that one as well, which unfortunately sucks. I really wish I could have seen that one. Aliens Convert, unfortunately, was sort of an odd and sort of a controversial entry in a way, and that movie somewhat did well, but didn't get exactly great response from a lot of critics and a lot of fans. Transformers: The Last Night, as well, got heavily bombarded with a lot of critics and fans as well. Although personally, I did see that movie, and I thought it was, let's put it this way, it was definitely better than Revenge of the Fallen, a bit better than The Last Night, but not as good as the first Transformers or Dark of the Moon was, though. So, but in either case, that movie didn't exactly perform as well as Paramount did, nor did movies like Dead Man Tell No Tale. Although I heard it did very well, though. It did a bit better, and we'll see if that one does get the 6th entry. If they do a 6th entry of Dead Man Tells No Tale, hopefully that's the last one. It's the final send-off for Pirates of the Caribbean. But in either case, and also Geostorm, that bombed really bad as well. So in either case, a lot of blockbusters movies did not do as well as they could, and I think it shows that some of these are not, critic-proof safe as a lot of people expect them to be. So unfortunately, there weren't really a lot of blockbuster movies, even some that may have gotten good reviews and all, didn't exactly hit it home. I mean, 2016, remember what happened with Star Trek Beyond? A lot of people like that, but that didn't perform well at the box office either. So for 2017, not a lot of box office movies actually hit it home or anything like that. And last but not least is, outside of Marvel, a lot of studios this year tried to do their cinematic universe, but none of them seem to have hit it out of the ballpark. Sony tried to do it with Dark Tower, and that underperformed pretty well. Unfortunately, underperformed though, much like with Ghostbusters Answer the Call did. King Arthur as well was supposedly start a cinematic universe, and that didn't exactly work out as well either. DCEU, while they had their cinematic universe, and while Wonder Woman was a hit, unfortunately Justice League did not perform as well, with a lot of controversy over what happened and everything like that. Supposedly a new architect is coming in. It's the same person who helped produce the movie It, so he's working on, and also I think created the whole Annabelle or that kind of cinematic universe or something like that. We'll have to wait and see how that one turns out. Meanwhile, Universal's Dark Universe got off to the worst start with the movie The Mummy, with fingers pointing out what happened in that one. For me, I think it was Alex Kurtzman going way over his head, not knowing what kind of movie he was trying to make. Tom Cruise micromanaging the movie to feel like it's a Tom Cruise movie starring Tom Cruise doing Tom Cruise stuff. To Universal saying we're announcing a Frankenstein movie, a Creatures from the Black Lagoon, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Johnny Depp will play the Invisible Man, putting the carriage way before the horse on that one. And unfortunately, the fallout from the failure of The Mummy basically led to the architects, I think Alex Kurtzman and another person, I apologize if I don't know his name, but he writes for the Fast and Furious. Both of them were pretty much let go, or their contracts were lapsed. Kurtzman went back to producing Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access, while the other guy went back doing the spin-off for Fast and Furious, throwing the Dark Universe into question. And the thing is about both the DCEU and the Dark Universe and other cinematic universe, and I think, as I mentioned in terms of what I talked about in The Good with Wonder Woman, is the fact that whether you liked it or not, Marvel knew what they were doing. They planned this very well. They first wanted to test the waters to ensure that Iron Man was a success, and then the cinematic universe came naturally here. What happened with both the DCEU and the Dark Universe and the other ones is that they simply had played we had to catch up with Marvel. And that ultimately hurt them though. For The Mummy and Batman vs. Superman, it was basically trying to do world building in their movies. And that's really unfortunate that these movies did not perform well, because again, the idea of the Dark Universe is good, but the execution was done poorly. Same thing with the DCEU. I think Batman vs. Superman had some good ideas in there. And I definitely didn't have an issue with Ben Affleck playing Batman. I thought he brought an interesting take, though, but it felt like world building in that one rather than actually doing a story. Hell, I think they should have done the Superman movie, the sequel to Superman, Man of Steel, or the Batman and the Wonder Woman movie, then go to Batman vs. Superman, then go to Suicide Squad and build up towards the Justice League movie, rather than just rush right in and try to catch up to Marvel. Same with the same with the Dark Universe as well. It, just like Batman vs. Superman, it felt like world building. I mean, the thing is, you gotta have people interested in it though. I mean, look, I'm not against the idea of a cinematic universe. I think it's a good idea, and I think it could work if it's implemented correctly. And obviously, both Warner Brothers and Universal screwed up big time, especially and Sony as well, with the whole Dark Universe though. But we'll have to wait and see how this is playing out though. I hope the Dark Universe isn't completely killed off, although I wouldn't be surprised if it is though. Again, good ideas. It was just executed poorly though. As for the DCEU, we'll see what this new person does. Hopefully he'll get it back on track, or they're going to have to hit the reset button somehow. And the thing is that whether people want to hear it or not, the reason why, like I said, the reason why Marvel is successful is that they took their time. They structured it well. They first had a movie, make sure it's a hit with the audience. That way they were able to attract people to get more invested in that cinematic universe, though. Warner Bros. Hasn't done that yet, though, outside of Wonder Woman, and Universal really did not do it right with basically the Dark Universe. So, but obviously we'll see if those universe gets a reboot or gets that second chance that they would, because I would like to see another cinematic universe outside of Marvel, but they have to execute it well next time, though. They have to really make sure it clicks with audience, that they are interested in that cinematic universe. If they don't do that, then you're not convincing them to invest time and money into it, though. So we'll have to wait and see, but obviously for those two cinematic universe, it was not a great 2017 for them at all. Okay, this concludes my 2 cent video on what I thought about movies in 2017. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about movies in 2017? Do you agree with what I said about in the good, the controversial mix, and the bad? Do you disagree? Are there any part that I may have accidentally left out? Do you have a difference of opinion than what I have, though? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. It can either be through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, and I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good evening then. Bye!